Hi folks, you were tapped today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. So listen to this live stream as you would say a radio broadcast. Sit back, close your eyes and allow it all to sink in. Now in this essay, I'd like to talk about the gun banning activism, supposed protests and so on that go on. Not so much in places like Australia or the United Kingdom, where there aren't that many guns anyway, but where, or if guns do exist, they tend to be in the remote rural areas. Farmers using guns to shoot wild pigs or something like that. But just in the United States, where the right to hold or carry weapons and bear firearms is enshrined in the Constitution, it's become a real fault line of dispute there. Now, there are various arguments as to why that may be. The idea that it's to protect children and so on, that's just straight propaganda. Wherever you see that, we're doing this to protect the vulnerable, then without having to ask a single question thereafter, that it's propaganda at that point. But I've looked at a number of protests, just quickly sort of skimmed through a number of, say, online videos and so on, and it's actually quite organised and clearly centrally organised and scripted. This idea of ban guns and buy guns, buybacks as they're called, and disarm, take guns away that are legally owned by citizens who've committed no crime. These sorts of things. It's become a big issue now in a situation where clearly in the United States, where the state, if you like, the power of the state is, and we see it now with this current administration in the United States, and even to a large extent with Obama, but certainly now with Merrick Garland at the AG and the globalist activists controlling the FBI and so on, and all many of the departments of justice around the place, we find that the state is all too willing to use deadly force against its citizens for purely political reasons. They've committed no crime, or it's a low-level misdemeanor at best, and they'll send a truckload of FBI agents with body armor and the SWAT team type thing to go and arrest some old man at his breakfast table. These sorts of things, and it's quite absurd, but it illustrates the extent to which the state is prepared to use massive and deadly force against its own citizens, and at the same time it wants to disarm those citizens. So you could say, well, that's a cause for concern. Why do they want to use deadly force against people for low-level misdemeanors, and at the same time they're trying to disarm people who hold weapons legally hold weapons, and citizens who have committed no crime? So this in itself is a question, but let's now look at the activism. Now, I noticed that the coordination between local government, local law enforcement authorities and departments of justice, and all this sort of thing, prosecutors, local city councils, and so on, the cooperation and the indulgence that they extend towards the activists who are globalist controlled, and I'll come back to that in a moment. But you can say there's little things. For example, in an area of parking which is illegal to park, and where the nearest sort of, if you like, mass parking area for multiple buses and coaches is a couple of miles away. Instead of the activist protesters, because they're bussing them in, instead of them having to park 2 miles away and walk, instead of that, the local city council waives the illegal parking rules for certain streets or areas, so they can park all their buses in there, which makes it very convenient to bus people in. So why is the government giving that? Why are they cutting a break to them like that? No one else gets a break in that same way when the National Rifle Association or some counter protester group wants to do anything. No, they have to park way across town with their buses. But if the active ban the gun activists want to do that, then really it's all laid on for them. Anything they need, any assistance the government can give, they're giving it. So it's hardly a grassroots thing, and the government is very clearly, in this case, state and the city administration, they're clearly very much on side with the protesters. So you couldn't call it grassroots. They're fighting back against the man. Far from it. The government's indulging them to the max here. So now on top of that, you've then got to feed however many 100, 200 people or whatever. You got to feed them, and they need toilets and so on. So the government, the city government, and even the state government then gives permission to these people to put food stalls in areas where it's otherwise illegal, where you need special permits that take months to approve. They're able to install these toilets and these and some often without even a proper permit to even have the have the protest or stage the protest. So they cut a lot of slack here. So now you consider this: if you're organising a protest, whoever you are, it doesn't matter where, and you've got to park miles away from the protest because you're bussing them in. You're bussing the protest. The protesters wouldn't arrive of their own. You're bussing them in maybe early in the morning, and they're expecting their hot tortilla and coffee breakfast, and they're expecting a whole lot of things, and you've got to lay that on if you're going to get these people to get out of bed early in the morning. They're not particularly industrious people in the overall scheme of things, so you got to encourage them to get out of bed. You got to give them something, otherwise they just plain won't do it. So you can't expect them to write up their own protest signs. You've got to do that for them. You've got to bus them in at your expense. You've got to feed them, and you've got to do a lot of things. So you've got to spend quite a bit of money on this to get these people. But let's suppose that the government says, no, you can't put food stalls and toilets there. If you want to put those food stalls, you can do it down in the community park 3 miles away down there. You can do, no, you're not parking your buses here. You have to park across town there. No, you can't get permission to put toilet facilities here. No, we're not having it. So you'd say as a protest organizer, this is not worth it. I'm not going to, we won't be able to get people to attend. And if we do get them to attend, they're going to wander off to find toilets and to find, food stores and take out food stores to get something to eat. The cost of that they're not going to be happy about, so they're going to drift away, and within 5 minutes we'll have no protest. So that's what you would do as a protest organizer. You say, no, it's not worth it. We just can't make this work. But because you're indulged so substantially, indulged to a level that no other protesters are permitted. If you're BLM, so you have to be in the approved permissible protest category, and that category is only if you are protesting for and on behalf of the globalist project. If you're not protesting on behalf of the globalist project, then screw it. You've got a million obstacles to overcome. They'll do everything they can to make it difficult and hard for you to get it together. So anyway, so they're managing to bus people in numerous protests fairly early in the morning, between 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning. Now, these people are sort of uni kids, they're teachers, they're public servants, they're academics, they're teachers, that sort of thing. They're your typical, your usual suspects, unemployed people, people with severe mental health problems. They're the ones that they can gather up pretty quickly. And they can, at 5 o'clock in the morning, they can put a couple of hundred people on the ground. Now, again, it's got to be all organised. They've got to be bussed in. The whole thing. Now, I don't know what the cost of that would be. If you look at the amount of buses, so there's 9 buses at one particular one I counted in the background. Now you look at the hiring of those buses. I'm not sure whether they're given to the protesters by the local government. Maybe you would normally use them as school buses, or I don't know, or for other purposes, and they're given free by the local government. Let's suppose that's not the case, and they're having to pay for them, as a commercial rate. You look at the cost of hiring those buses, the cost of running them, the cost of gasoline, petroleum, and the cost of the driver to do, because for insurance purposes you had to have like a registered driver. You just can't have some Joe off the street. They have to be licensed to drive a bus and all that sort of thing. So you got all that. Then you've got the cost of putting up those food stalls, and the toilets are higher of those, and that cost. Then on top of that, there are people who may be volunteers, but there are people who then move through the crowd during the day, handing out food and bottles of drinking water and that sort of thing. If the temperature gets a bit cold, then these people go around handing out, warm jackets and coats, and or if it's a warm day, giving out free T-shirts and things like that. So you add up the cost of that, and some of these protests, you'd have no change out of $100,000. Now, where does that money come from? If I was a government at any level approving this, I would be asking this question: who's paying for all this? Where is this money coming from? As a government, I would want to know, because if that organisation has a tax-free charity status, then I would be asking, well, you're engaging in political activism, which is in contravention of tax law and other laws as well, regarding, if you're a politically activist, you can't also be a charity. If you're a charity, then fucking do charity work. Don't be politically activist and then falsely claim to be a charity. So looking at all these things, now coming to the sort of people that attend them, attend these so-called protests, and remember, these are ban the gun, which is very much a globalist gig right now. They're pushing quite hard for it now. Now the one of the main bullhorn agitators, the one that I spotted, I'd seen her also at a climate protest in New York. This was in the Midwest, this one. So it's a Midwest ban the gun, but then in New York she's doing the climate protest. So we're talking about a cadre of professional globalist funded, centrally scripted, trained activists who are there as agitators to stir up crowds, and who are experienced at coming out with silly statements. Are we going to let our kids be killed by people with guns? No. What about the Nazis with the guns? Yeah, and that sort of thing, and just whipping up the low IQ crowd into a frenzy. Now, no one's fact checking them. You don't see it on CNN saying, "Well, look what these people are saying. We fact check and it's all bullshit." You don't see that. That seems to be, those lies are permissible lies. They're globalist permissible lies, and so they can go right through. But you question it, then you're a fucking Nazi. So some of these people have had quite good media training. You can see how they're prepared for the sort of questions that they may get. So if they are interviewed, they quickly respond to a prepared utterance, and you can see the training. They listen to the question, click, 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 click. Oh, that's answer number 32. Bang, and out it comes. So and it takes quite a while to train somebody to that monkey see, monkey do level. So these aren't people, again, that were grabbed off the street. These are professional activists. Now they've also got, as well as the trained media flunkies on, they've also got lawyers on hand. So if someone tries to move them on, if they have any sort of interaction with any law enforcement authority, or they do get arrested or something like that, then they've got lawyers on hand. Now, they may be volunteer lawyers, but they've got, the ratio of lawyers to people must be like 1 to 20. So they're very, very well provisioned with lawyers. I can't imagine any other group would be that that well provisioned with lawyers. It makes a difference too, because if the police come to make an arrest and there's a lawyer there that says, well, actually in law 30, law 99 subsection 2, it says that a citizen is allowed, and they'll call it up and they'll show the officer, an officer, if you arrest this person or harass them and move them on, we will require you to appear before a magistrate or a judge in the morning to show cause for your illegal actions. Now, when you do that, the cops, who are just, for the most part, just grunts, they'll back off. They go, holy shit, I don't want to be standing in the witness box being tongue lashed by the fucking magistrate or the judge. So they back off. They don't do. So they'll go away and get further instructions. Then their legal people will get involved and there'll be another interpretation. But at least it's lawyer to lawyer. If the police try and get heavy with somebody, then or aggressive, and you've got a lawyer there, then it's a different ball game. And I can speak from personal experience, sort of observing those sorts of things, or in situations where police have been wrongly called, or somebody panics, they're in the wrong and they want to try and gin the situation up. I'm going to call the police, and next thing you know, the police are rushing along, and if you quite clearly state, well, this is the law, page 54, subsection and I quote, and officer, if you do such and such, I will bring you before a magistrate to show, and that sort of thing. That always causes them, reasonably so, by the way, always causes them to back off and make sure that the ground they're standing on is good. They can slap around just random members of the community, but you come back at them with the law, and they, oh shit, okay, different ballgame. Now, so why lesbians and particularly Jewish lesbians, Jewish lesbian teachers are very prominent in these gun control things. Now, they claim that and this is again a line they've been given by the globalists, if it's white people, they're giving voice to the oppressed. We're standing up for brown and black people because we have white privilege, so we're standing up for the oppressed. And that's a very Jewish gig, that as well. Wherever you see Jewish activists, they'll always jump to that line there. We're just helping the oppressed. We're just standing up for the victims. Now, what happens when these people are questioned as some sort of, every now and again they get asked not so much difficult questions, but relevant questions. Well, 90% of the murders last year, on the last 12 months, were black people shooting each other with illegal guns, not legal guns, illegal guns. So how will banning legal guns prevent illegal guns and shooting in the black community? Wouldn't it be better to clamp down on illegal weapons, and particularly illegal? No. If we do that, that's racism. That's the sort of thing Hitler would do. Fucking Nazis. So we have to stand by while the black people shoot each other because that's not being Nazi. Is that kind of how that works? So, all right then. Well, so we ban guns, but then the guns get taken away from people who legally own the guns and who are citizens who've committed no crime. So why would we take guns away from people who legally own them, have committed no crime, whereas not doing anything about the illegal guns owned by people who have a real tendency to go around shooting each other? You fucking racist, fucking fascist, fucking Nazi. It's white supremacy. It's the white supremacists. It's Hitler. So they've really got no answer for that, and they just go off hysterically on white supremacy and the likes. But they refuse absolutely point blank in every question scenario I've seen. Refuse point blank to engage with. But it's black people shooting each other with illegal and nearly all handguns. By the way, I think it was over 80% of the shootings were handguns. So the idea of banning a rifle isn't relevant when it comes to the shootings there. So they saw there was 1,000 murders last year. So sure, but 898 of them were black people killing each other. What's that going to do with and it was handguns, not rifles. So what's banning rifles got to do with anything? Oh, it doesn't matter. It's white supremacy. It's Hitler. You fucking Nazi. You're asking that question, so that makes you a fucking Nazi. So another one said, well, it doesn't matter if all the people who legally hold a gun and lose their weapons, as in the government confiscates them or takes them, because if even one black life is saved as a consequence of that, then it's been worth it. Okay, well, that's clearly a globalist propaganda line, so we can dismiss that. But what about social programs to encourage black people to not shoot each other and to not be so keen to acquire illegal weapons? You're being a Nazi again, you fucking Hitler. So really they've got they're just simply globalist controlled puppet activists. They've actually got no answer to anything. They've got no understanding of the issues, nor do they want to understand the issues. They're simply there to scream and wave placards around and so on. Would any of these people, go along if they weren't being bussed in and given free food and free access to convenient, toilet, bathroom type facilities? Of course not. I reckon you'd be lucky to get half a dozen people to turn up. It's only because there's a massive infrastructure supporting them, just like there's a massive infrastructure supporting mass migration. It's the same thing. Would any, or would, other than a tiny proportion of those people, engage in the long journeys to the rich Western country from their third world shithole, would they do that without the massive infrastructure assisting them? Of course they wouldn't. Of course they wouldn't. And nor would these people be doing these ridiculous protests unless it was all being laid on them, for them, with transport and food and so on. Particularly at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning, who's going to get up then unless they're being well looked after? So I can't find a single reason that's put forward that why people who legally own guns have committed no crime, why they should have their guns taken, nor has anyone put forward a reason that they can rave about Hitler or something like that. But the reality is there is no reason. Now, a couple of people mentioned things like, say a white guy got a gun and had mental health issues, but because of the dysfunction within the bureaucracy, they didn't pick it up straight away that he had these mental health issues, and he was able then to acquire a gun or something like that, and therefore that means all guns should be banned rather than the bureaucracy should tighten up its procedures. So they seem to be confused. If anything goes wrong anywhere, then it all has to be sort of demolished. Because it somehow is going to lead to a better future, but no one can explain how or why or in what way. So that's my sort of look at these multiple street level protests that I've seen, and again, it's centrally controlled by the globalists, funded by the globalists, scripted by the globalists, and very much part of the globalist project. You've been a Tacitus Debate, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.